There we go. A little better. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Can you guys hear me all right? Hopefully you guys can. Let's get situated up here. So you guys can see me all right. There we go. Hey Brian. Oh, the other day we got 18 and a half inches, and then today we got, on top of that, we got another two. It's been crazy. But not over the top. So which is all good. The less the better. Well, we got some stuff to talk about tonight. Brought in some carburetors. Ho, 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 yeah. I'm gonna do a little bit of talking. I wanted to get you guys a feel of this. Picking topics. So I get a lot of emails and a lot of questions. It's hard to keep up with them all. Um, a lot of people asking about what do you call it there? Carburetors, and they're like, "Oh, I forgot to ask a question after the video was all done." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. It's all cool." So I get a lot of that type of stuff. So I wanted to talk a little bit about carburetors tonight, and of course, whatever you guys are working on, let's talk about those as well, projects and stuff like that. But a lot of carburetor questions have been coming up recently, and a lot of people have been getting bikes and not sure what they're dealing with carburetor, what circuits do what, and this is why we do this channel, is to explain how carburetors work, go through them, and adjustments and all that type of stuff. Hey Jeff, awesome. Hear you just fine. Awesome, cool, cool, cool. That's good. I'm always worried about that. Make sure you guys can hear me and all that. So carburetors are probably one of the most complicated parts on a motorcycle. It doesn't matter what you're riding. It can be a little Honda 50. It can be a Yamaha Virago 1100, a Harley Davidson. It can be anything. It can be a Spider. Um, it is one of the most confusing parts on a bike because it's got so many little orifices, and it can make your bike act. A carburetor can make it act up like an ignition problem. It can have a hesitation. It can be running perfectly fine, and then you hit that one spot in the throttle, and then it just falls on its face. Um, it can destroy a bike, and it can make a bike run extremely great. Okay, so the carburetor can be your best friend, but it can also be your worst enemy. And I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about some common things. I brought in a few carburetors from outside, from out in the shed that I had kicking around, and well, I'll get right into it. How's that? All right. And if you guys have any questions about what I'm talking about, feel free to ask the questions, because that's what I want. I want you guys to ask the questions if you're not sure. Okay. So I'm gonna use the brand new carburetor. This is a brand new carburetor, and I don't know what it's for. It was given to me. All right. So this is a brand spanking new nylon floats and all that, brand new jets in there and everything. Okay. So um well, let's get into talking about the air mixture screw. This is one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about, and it is a very common issue. Okay. So, Kevin, what is the adjustment on my KE100 on this setting? And I tell him it's screw it all the way in, and then you back it up 1.5 turns. Well, here's what happens. I often forget to tell you guys that that is the base setting. That is not the final setting. You don't turn it from stop to out to 1.5 and then you're done with it. No, it doesn't work like that. So the reason why it's adjustable is because every engine, no matter what the mileage is on it, is worn differently. Okay. So one engine might have lower compression than the other. One engine might have a performance exhaust on it, better air filter. all those type of things. Everything you do to your bike matters. The exhaust could have more soot in it than another bike has. Okay, maybe it was running lean at one point, or has a different spark plug. Anything on these bikes will affect the way the bike runs. So when you're adjusting a carburetor, you want to make sure the bike is up to temperature. Okay, it's very important. Even if it's running like crap, get the bike up to temperature before you do this. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys how I adjust my air mixture screw. All right. There are a few people who do it differently, which is okay. There's 1,000 videos on there on how to adjust a carburetor, but this is a generic way of doing a carburetor. All right. So what I do is I lower my RPM. So I get the bike running. I don't care if it's running great. I don't care if it's running bad or what the case is. I just want the bike to get up to temperature. Okay. I lower the throttle, not so it wants to stall out, but I want the throttle low. Okay. I want it low. As low as you can go and then a little higher. You know what I mean? So I don't want the thing going, "Buh, buh, buh." I don't want hit and missing. I want it to be a smooth, nice idle, but low as you can go. Okay. Then what I do is I start off all the way in and back it out 1.5. Okay. That is my base setting. That's what the book says. That's it. 1.5. That doesn't matter if you're working on a Z50, a KE100, a Yamaha Virago 1100, a Yamaha Breeze, a Suzuki LT50. Doesn't matter what bike you're working on. Okay. That's the base setting. Okay. What does that mean? Base setting. That means that setting is going to allow you to run the bike. Okay. That's going to allow the bike to run and idle and be okay. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to turn the screw out or in to increase the idle. So you're not going to adjust it from your idle speed screw. You're going to turn your idle mixture screw until the engine climbs up on the RPMs. And you're going to turn that until you get the maximum RPM out of that adjustment. Once you get to your maximum adjustment, you're going to back it off a half a turn. Okay. Then your carburetor is adjusted. And then at that point, you can then go ahead and adjust your idle speed to the RPMs that you want. Okay. That is how you adjust a carburetor. It is one of the most complex things because I'm going to explain it in one of my other videos next time I go to do one, but I haven't really had to do one on screen. So I figured this would be a good time to answer those questions. The idle circuit. Oh, just dropped the gasket. All right. So with the choke, the choke is open. The bike is idling. What jet is it using? There are two jets underneath here. There is right here is a pilot jet, and then right here is your main jet. The bikes, when they're idling, they're not using this main jet at all. They're using the pilot jet. Okay. So you want to make sure that pilot jet is clear. Okay. You want to make sure that when you take your slide out, and if I put a flashlight on the backside here, you're going to see light through, you're going to see two holes, a big hole and a small hole. That is your main jet and your idle jet. Okay. If you can see light through them, they're clear. All right. The other thing I've been hearing a lot about is my bike will idle perfectly. About 5-10 minutes of idling, it wants to die. What's going on? Then I let it sit, and then the bike will idle again. Okay, this is a good problem. All right. So in the front here, you can see those little orifices. Those are air jets. Those allow air to go into the bowl. I'm doing a video, buddy. Okay. Okay. Those allow air to go into the bowl and let the fuel come down through. If that is clogged, it's going to basically block, and so air can't escape or come in. And what happens is the fuel can't go down through this little fuel nipple right here and into the carburetor bowl. It can't do it. So what happens is when you shut your bike off, air escapes any way it can, then it allows the fuel to fill back up in the bowl, and then you're running it. Now, one of the common problems with this is not necessarily down here. If your carburetor is clean and you could get a spray through that air jet in the front, then you're good. What I find is I've been seeing bikes, been coming through with bikes with clogged petcocks, and bad fuel tank vents. All right. So, Andrew, hold on one second. Andrew, I want to show you guys something. Andrew, can you get me one of the straws?
Straws?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, buddy.
Which straw? The plastic?
It doesn't matter. Just one of the straws. I want to show you guys something. And this is going to simulate what's going on. Okay. I'm going to use my bottled water to simulate this. I've done this in a video, but not everybody's seen it. So I want to show you guys. All right. Thank you, buddy. Andrew, is there a clear straw by any chance? A clear one?
Let me go check.
All right. Thank you.
Keep it there.
All right. I'm going to hold off on that. He's going to go check and see if there's a clear straw. All right. So you need to allow air to get in there. And there is vents on the side.
Rain.
No, that's not clear. I want a clear one you can see through. Is there a see-through one?
Oh, I think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a little a brass fitting. I don't know if you can see that or not. Right here on the side of the carburetor. Right here. I got my finger on it. And if you look underneath, there is a hole. Okay. All right. Thank you. There is a hole underneath. This is your bowl vent. If that little piece is plugged, oh, you got one right there. Perfect. Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome.
Okay. It's all right. It's fine. So, if that vent underneath there is clogged, that right there will stop the air from coming out. So this right here lets the air in, this main jet, or not main jet, it's an air jet, lets air go into the bowl. When the fuel comes in, it has to push the air out. So it pushes it out through that vent right there. Okay, and let's see if I have one on the KE100s. Okay, so on the KE100 carb, this is an old one, it's not there. It's actually in the front. So it pushes it out through. You have an air jet in the front, and then the next hole over to that, that's where the air comes out. Now I want to show you guys what happens. I'm going to use this water as an example in this straw. This straw is going to represent your fuel line. All right. So when I pull the straw out, so right now, pretend there's a fuel cap. Okay. If you had a good fuel vent, when I pull this out, there is no water in the line. Okay. If you have a clogged fuel cap, now I got water in here. You see this or not? Ready? You see that? It came right through, and that's how you can see. See the water in the line. Okay. So what happens is when you have a clogged fuel line, a fuel cap, and it can't vent, the fuel can't go from the fuel tank to the carburetor. So it can make you think that the petcock is clogged. It can make you think that there's a problem with your carburetor. Like, I just cleaned this carburetor. What the heck is going on? And it could simply be a clogged fuel cap. Now, how come the bike would run? Here is why. Because there is air on top of the fuel. What you're doing when you're running the bike and sucking down on the fuel, it's pulling it down. It's creating what they call a vacuum. So it can't pull any air into the tank. And that is why that happens. So if your fuel tank vent is clogged, it will give you a hesitation. It would bog. It would just fall on its face, and you'll be chasing yourself all over the place thinking it's the carburetor. But if you clean your carburetor and you can blow through all the jets and all the orifices in the carburetor, you're probably saying to yourself, okay, what the heck is going on? Check your fuel caps. So here's how you check a fuel cap. Simply reproduce the same problem, and as the bike is starting to die, take the fuel cap off and just let it run. See what it'll do. If it'll pick back up. If it picks back up, then you know you have a bad fuel cap. If it doesn't do that, and it still has a hesitation, it could be a clogged petcock. If it still does it, then it would be the carburetor. Okay, so those are a couple things to check. Now, one of my other questions was, Kevin, I have I can't tell if I can clean my carburetor. Now, there's a couple of types of dirty carburetors, two types of dirty carburetors. One has all this white cruddy stuff. I don't know if you can see that now. You can actually see these little holes up top here and inside the carburetor. Those are the vents. Okay, those are the vents I was talking to you about. And you can see how it has that little white dot. Kind of hard to see on this camera, but um, those white dots, that's water. That's water corrosion. So oxidization. You can see this whole carburetor is just covered in white stuff. It's all over it, just caked in it. All right. This carburetor right here is junk. It was literally subject to water that had crystallized and calciumized, or however water does it. Um, and that water is actually into the orifices in the carburetor that you can't clean. When you have a carburetor like this, it is extremely hard to clean it. Sometimes you can get away with CLR, but not after. Typically, when the water gets to them and they're all white corroded like that, it's very hard to save them. A lot of people use a soda blast and soda blast the carburetor and get it clean that way, but that doesn't clean inside the orifices. So I typically get people saying, "Kevin, I cleaned the carburetor, soda blasted it, and everything else, but it's impossible to clean those orifices because you can't put anything going sideways into a carburetor. You can only go up or down. So that makes it a little difficult. Now, if you have a carburetor that is subject like this one, so this one right here, you can see all that brown nuts on it. That is all fuel. Okay, this right here, the fuel had turned to varnish, and this can be just as hard to clean because you can see if you I don't know if you can or not, right here on the carburetor, you can see the aluminum was actually chewed away. Okay, when you look at the bottom of a carburetor and the aluminum or magnesium, whatever they make, whatever the materials on these carburetors, when they get eaten out like that, it is extremely difficult to clean them properly because that needs to go down. That's the reason why that tube is like that, or comes down that far. It's because that's where the fuel gets picked up. So when you cut that back, it's not going to be able to pick up that fuel at the bottom of the bowl. So you do have a margin. I think it's like eighth of an inch or 16th of an inch. But after that, once it chews it out, that's it. Okay, you're basically stuck with replacing that carburetor. So both carburetors, that one I just showed you, and the one with the white corrosion, both carburetors should be replaced. Which brings me to my next part: carburetor replacement in Chinese carburetors. Now, a lot of people say to me, Kevin, those Chinese carburetors are junk. Let me tell you something. All carburetors are junk with that new fuel that we got. Okay? When you have ethanol fuel, all carburetors are junk. Period. I don't care who makes it. I don't care if it's factory. You got to make sure you take care of them. Um, I have never had an issue with the Chinese carburetor. I've had them where they sent it to me and it was dirty inside. It had all like grayish powder. And I'll tell you this: whenever you buy a knockoff carburetor, it could be for a lawnmower, a snowblower, a motorcycle, dirt bike, whatever. Take the bowl off and spray it out with carburetor cleaner or brake cleaner. You want to wash off all that material. They mass produce these things, and they're not known for their cleanliness. Okay, they basically screw them together. I've had great luck with the Chinese carburetors, and I have nothing bad to say about them. They're cheap, so I mean, you get what you pay for. I hear you. I know what you mean. However, they are good to get your bikes up and going, and I do use them. I bought a Chinese carburetor for my whatchamacallit there, my Z50, and when that comes in, I'll be putting that on there. My carb floats are bad, but I can't find the exact replacement. Can I get a slightly? Yes, you can. You can get a replacement float. Here's what I would do with that is I would go if you need a replacement part. First thing you do is go to partzilla.com, look up your schematic for your bike. Okay, so you can go on partzilla.com, you can pull up your year, make, and model, and then it gives you a part parts breakdown. It'll show you the float. It'll show you the needle and seat, the jets, all that stuff. Then you can get a part number. Okay. You can take that part number and you can put it into the system and like on eBay or Amazon and possibly get that correct float. That's a great question. Now, if you can't find it there, you can find it from a sister bike. So say you're working on a KE 100, broaden your search to KE 100, KD 100, KD 80, KM 100, MC1, Trail Boss 100, KV 100, G3SS Kawasaki, um, Suzuki, AC 100. Those all those carburetors would use that same exact float. Okay, so you can really broaden your horizon. What you got to do whenever you get a bike, and I keep forgetting to bring this up, look for the sister bike to your bike because we're dealing with classic bikes. The sister bikes to your bike could actually really, really help you out. Okay, and meaning like I had one person say, Kevin, I can't find a baffle for my KM 100. Well, get one for a KD 80, same one, or a KD 100, or an MC one. They're the same. So you can literally find the sister bike to your bike and get the same one. Okay, that's where it's going to help you out a tremendous amount. A tremendous amount. That's the sister bikes and researching. The I get a question. Next question was on jetting. Okay, Kevin, I got a performance bike. I put a performance exhaust on it. One of those pod filters you hate. What jet size do I use? Well, it doesn't work like that. I can't just say, put this jet in it, you're good to go. No, I do have to do a video on that. Unfortunately, I have to do that over the spring or summer, doing a jetting. A jetting is, there's more to it than that. Okay. When you jet a carburetor, do I have the bike? And yeah, oh yeah, there's always a sister bike. You just have to. I'm not really sure which one. IT. Um, LT one would probably be a 185. Would be like a sister bike to use. So typically, what you would do. That's another good question. How do you know what sister bike is yours? Which is a great question. So the what you're gonna. All right. Hold on one second. Um, so what you're gonna do is take a picture of your bike. Go on Google. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your exact model and go next one up to see if they look exactly the same. Um, when you find an sister bike, you're actually using a visual inspection of the bike. So what you're going to be looking at is your side covers, your gaskets. Oftentimes, what you can do is if you buy a gasket set, or something for the bike, it'll say on that tag what other bikes it fits. So, all right, for instance, when I bought Dave's main bearings and crank seals, that kit, it said it fits the TC 125, the TS 125, the TS 185. So I know that all those bikes on there are the sister bikes to that bike. Same thing with the KM, the KDs, and all that. So what I would suggest is you're going to have to look at whatever you bought for the bike or go online and see what it fits. Because typically what will happen, like if you go on eBay, all right, and you're looking for a part, like we'll just say a cover, and you put the part number in, and then you scroll down, it'll tell you this will fit this bike. And there'll be a whole list of parts. Basically, what you're using is you're using eBay and Partzilla to locate your sister bikes. That's how I find what bikes work with other bikes. I use visual inspection. So if I look at this motor and I look at this, so like Dave's TS 125 looks exactly like my DS 100. They are sister bikes. In fact, the cover that I got for my DS 100 came off the TS 125. Not as nice as Dave's, but it's the same color. You'll see it. I'll show you guys that in one of my videos because some stuff came in for that, and we have to put all that stuff on. But those are the sister bikes. So the DS 100, the TS 125, the TS 185. Those are all in a family. Okay, and the family, like a family tree, has branches. So like you got your KE 100, and you get your KM 100, your KDs. That does not everything quite fits, but there's a lot that does. Same thing with like the Suzuki DS 80 fits a lot of parts to the DS 100, but not everything. You're close, but not always a cigar. So you have to do your research. Um, the Suzuki TS 125. If you look at my oil video on the my DS 80, I'm sorry, my DS 100. It's a fairly recent video. I show you how to set them up. I just did that on my DS 100, and it's the same exact thing. So I think it's like maybe 5 or 6 videos back from the newest ones. Yamaha made a GT 175. What year? That year. Sister bike. Yeah, it's a good possibility. I'll have to check into it for you. Um, in fact, I have Robert's DT 400, and that bike is beautiful. Um, he just sent me up the fuel tank, and I normally do a first look video on what came in, but this one I'm saving. He's got a pristine. Now, if you look on the DT 400 from Robert's bike, the first look you'll see it's got a red tank. Oh no, that bike's not going to be red. That bike is going to be beautiful, bright yellow with the graphics on the tank. And he sent me a whole plethora of parts. I've been collecting these parts for this bike, and we're going to be doing that soon as well. And it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful bike, which would also, some of the parts are interchangeable. So you really have to take pictures, go on Google, save pictures of it's a DT family. So your bike is built on the DT lineup. Typically, if you have a 175 DT, it'll be the next one up, like a DT 185, or if they don't have a 185, it'll be like a 200. It'll be in that realm. The DT 400 will not be interchangeable because it's just too big of a bike. The CCs are too far apart. So you want to get them closer to where they are, and they'll be interchangeable. And that's why I wanted to do this, because working with cowbrays and stuff like that, finding those parts, changing them over, making sure what works on what. It's the same thing with these bikes with the side covers, the um, clutch baskets, all that stuff. You really need to look. I know that um, the DS 100 and the DS 125 use the same clutch. Works out pretty well. Crank bearing question: should they be installed in the case first? I install mine on the crank first. That's where I put mine on the crank, and then I pull it through. Um, I mean, people do it all different ways. I'm going to be showing you guys a video. I actually use the crankshaft to pull itself through. I use a tube with a big washer, and I use the crank nut to pull it to suck it in. Why do some bikes have a single cylinder engine but 2 spark plugs? That is the hot and cold. So a lot of Hondas use that, Brian. Um, they use what they call a hot and cold plug. It's like an afterburn. So the idea behind that, from what I gathered, I haven't really got too much into the science of that, but from what I heard about it, are you talking about a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke? Because there's two different reasons for that. I'll go into both. If you have 4-stroke, they normally lit the main plug off first, and then when it traveled down the cylinder a little bit, they lit off the second one, and that would help complete a burn on and give you more power on that power stroke. On a 2-stroke engine, they had 2 spark plugs sticking up on a lot of them, and Elvin's bike is one of those, or you can put a plug in it. Yep, or they have a plug. What the reason for that is when you're racing or going through the whole thing, sometimes you would follow a spark plug. It would just fall out. So what you would do is you take your coil wire off and stick it on the other plug, kick it back over, and off you went. Um, that's the reason why they had two spark plugs on two strokes. It just basically it was you think of Baja, you're out in the woods, you're or not in the woods, but you just ripping this bike. Two strokes each spark plugs, so they could take a plug off, put it on the other one, off they went, and it worked out pretty well for a lot of people. A lot of people, what they would do with those bikes is they would shave the heck out of the head and make it into a high compression cylinder and a cylinder head. So they would deck the engine so the piston would be at top dead center. It would be aligned with the top of the cylinder to get more power out of it, make more compression. They would shave the cylinder head, so really they'd have a lot more squeeze on the compression. And then on that second hole, what they would do is they'd put a decompression valve, so when they kicked the bike over, it wouldn't rip up the gears, and then the bike would pop off, and then you could go. So that's just how they did that. A lot of the two spark plugs per cylinders are on like the Honda. What do you call it? The Magnas, oh geez, trying to think. The VT 500s and 750s and 700s. Those all use the two cylinders before spark plugs. In fact, Ford Motor Company on their Ford Rangers, they use a 2.2 liter, and they have two spark plugs per cylinder on the four cylinder. So it's got two coil packs, two four-cylinder coil packs with four plugs on it each. It's crazy. Um, is it really needed? Not really. No. Is it going to give you any more power? I honestly haven't seen any difference with them. Typically, when they go, I just unplug it and it runs fine on that one magneto. But yeah, that's why they do two plugs, and that's a pretty cool thing. Some people like to use two ignition coils on that, and I don't know if that I've seen it. I can't comment if it gives you any more power or not. It was a pretty neat idea. I saw it on an older bike, and they literally had two coils going down to two plugs, and then the one wire that comes off your magneto goes into two. I would think you kind of lose power doing that because you're taking voltage and it'd be a voltage drop, but you don't know. I don't know. I never seen it like how they got more power out of it. I would think it would be more of a hassle than it would be any good, especially where the coils don't really go. Um, Points ignition is a great thing. So I always say I personally like CDI, and I got to tell you why I like CDI. A lot of people, Kevin, how come you always change all your things to points? From points to CDI. One major reason is I have a lot of bikes. So if I had to um, go ahead and replace the points on my bike every other year, my wife would kill me. It's that simple. You figure $20 per bike for points and condenser. It's a lot of money, and I have a lot of bikes. So I'd rather just go and buy a couple boxes of spark plugs. In fact, some of my bikes, I use high compression heads, so they all kind of take the same spark plugs. So I'm only buying one spark plug. Typically, I have to buy a couple of them because I have a couple bikes that use different plugs, but the Kawasaki's all share the same spark plugs, even if it's a KM or a KE, because the high compression they have the same spark plugs, the same length. I'll stop it. Oh, thank you, Patrick. Yeah, I love cooking in the microwave when it comes to pizza. It's just one of those things I've been working on for a long time. I meant to do a video, and I'm going to be putting that with. I have a life series on my playlist, and teach people how to tie a tie, how to restart a furnace. So I'm going to be putting that how to cook a pizza in a microwave in my life series. I have to get back on that series. I haven't really done too many videos on my life series for quite a few years, so I want to get back into doing some life videos. I call them Just things to help people out, how to tie a tie, how to light a furnace, things you should know, man stuff. I mean, you got to know how to cook a pizza properly in the microwave. Some people like to cook it in the oven. Some people like to cook it. I don't have time to put it in an oven. I'm always on the go, 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 go. Do this, do that, do this, that. So microwave it is. Boom, done, and that's how I cook them. So, um, so yeah. I mean, once again, take pictures of your bikes. Learn your bike. Enjoy your bike. But most of all, two strokes are finicky. When you stop playing with different things like exhaust, oh, here's what happens. Okay, it's a psychology thing or something. I forgot the word I'm looking for, but what happens is you hear hey Larry, you hear a four stroke go by and it's loud as hell. I mean, it's just ripping, and you notice that the pipe in the back is it's big, it's huge, and the thing is just roaring. Wow, I like that. Well, I'm gonna take my baffle out of my exhaust and make my bike loud. Louder does not equal more power. What that said is two strokes rely on the back pressure. Okay, they rely on it. Where a four stroke really doesn't care. If you stop playing with your baffles, taking them out, now you're creating lean conditions. Okay, they are very finicky, and here is why I'm going to tell you guys why a four stroke is more forgiving than a two stroke, and why a two stroke is better. Okay, so a four stroke has valves. They close and open, and there's a very brief second where they're both kind of open at the same time. It's the overlap, but it's okay because that's designed to do that. All right. You can lean a four stroke out and it can handle it a whole lot better than a two stroke. A two stroke, like a four stroke, you'll notice it's starting to heat up and it'll have a ping. It'll be ping, ding, ding, ding. You'll hear it. You'll hear the engine and you'll be like, okay, I'm too lean here. I got to richen it up a bit. And then you can easily adjust it. If you do that on a two stroke, it's too late. There's already damage. All right. The two stroke, the exhaust port and the intake port are literally open at the same exact time. Remember, a two stroke is doing it fires every time it goes to the top, the spark plug knocks it back down every single time. With that said, there's when the piston is moving down, it's pushing the fuel and air up the transfer ports and on top of the piston and pushes the exhaust out. What happens is when you lean out an engine like that, you're greatly increasing the heat. When you greatly increase the heat, you're literally going to melt metal. That's what happens, and it's literally a molten metal. So you're taking that, you're creating so much heat that it's like a cutting torch. Okay, you don't want that to happen. So the bike is tuned with. I'm just going to call it three things. There's a little bit more to it than three things, but I'm going to say three things for the basics of it. Okay, your exhaust, your air filter are tuned to your jets. Okay, when you take out any one of those things, when you take your air filter off, you get more air through, less fuel. That's lean. When you take your exhaust off, the exhaust flows faster out there, pulling more air through the carburetor. That's lean. That's how that works. Now, with a four stroke, okay, you take the air filter off, more air is going to go through. It's only going to go through to what the valve is going to allow. Okay, so it's going to heat up, but it's not going to be as intense as a two stroke, or at least as quickly. You can blow a two stroke up in seconds with a lean condition. That's why I'm telling you guys, make sure your side covers are on your motors, make sure your air cleaners are on there, make sure that your exhaust is complete with the baffles in it. If you want to make modifications, there's ways of doing that. And I'm going to be doing, um, so Brian, Brian's bike, that blue GT80, I'm going to be going through that bike, and he wants me to make what they call a sleeper. So when you hear me use the terminology sleeper, that basically means a little bike that can go flying. And so, okay, that's what you want to do. I'm all in. It's going to make for some great video. I'm going to be teaching you guys about porting, boring, um, tricking out carburetors, tricking out air cleaner, tricking out that entire bike. We're going to make that bike go. Um, we're going to make some more power out of it. I'm going to teach you guys about modifying your baffles. And we're going to be doing a whole video on jetting. And it's going to be an intense video. And it's going to be long. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be long because there's a lot to it. But you guys will learn a ton of information about that. Just check the 82, 25. Yep. So most likely that is your sister bike. Would be the DT175. So the Born Stroke, you want to look at the engine covers. You want to see what it's got for a carburetor. The carburetors can be interchangeable. So here's a perfect example of that. The RX-50 motor has a different style carburetor than the GT80, but they're interchangeable. You can take the whole intakes off and switch them over. You just gotta make sure you jet it properly. So keep that in mind. So you can put a GT80 carburetor on a RX-50 and get more power out of it, but it'll be opposite if you go the other way. So a couple of cool things there. Yep. So yeah, I mean, when you run a bike, any bike, without an air cleaner, it's called dirt ingestion. So kind of like when you're breathing, okay? I want you to think of this. Your boss tells you, I need you to go strip all the paint off this building or off this bridge or off this, all this stuff, okay? The first thing you're going to do is go and grab a respirator because you don't want to be breathing in all that powdery paint and crap that's coming off the building or the bridge or whatever you're doing. So you put a respirator on, it's got two air filters on each side, and you're going at it. Then at the end of the day, you're putting your PPE away, you take your air filters out, and they are just caked. And you're like, oh my God, I would have been breathing all that in. Engines are just like humans. They breathe the same way. I know it sounds crazy, but they do. They breathe just like you and I do. And we are also naturally aspirated, so you can use that kind of the same. So we breathe through our nose, they breathe through their nose. This is their nose, okay? So when you don't put an air filter on this, they are taking an air load to the ground. So the tire's kicking up dirt, the bike is flying, it's making dust, the vehicle in front of you is making dust, you're on a trail, it's bringing up dust and dirt. It all goes through here. So if you don't have your bike with PPE, personal protection, it's going to suffer a fate. And the thing is, you're going to basically, the piston cylinder will be the lungs, and you're taking all the dirt and debris and you're destroying the lungs. Okay. So it's basically, like smoking, that's what happens. It's just going to go through here. It's going to go into the cylinder. It's going to chew it up. And you're going to lose compression, power, and eventually you're going to need to rebuild. Okay. So personal protection that you would wear, they need an air filter. Um, when a bike is running lean, one of the things you'll notice with the bike before blows, it runs amazing. It is stupid power. It's like a nitrous shot. Um, Typically, they'll throttle up really, really quick. I mean, they will just be snappy as all heck. And then they'll just, "Whoa, what happened? It was just running great. What's going on?" It leaned out. I see people, and I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of bikes in my time doing this. Okay, remember, I've been doing bikes since I was 10 years old. All right, 44 now. So that's 34 years of seeing bikes I've seen people who knew how to take care of them, and I've seen people who didn't. And when the people who didn't know how to take care of the bike and didn't understand what was going on, those bikes typically ended up in a junkyard or at my house in a scrap pile, and I pull parts off because it would just burn them up. All right, and that's why I'm teaching you guys the proper way. There is nothing wrong with a stock bike. Bring the bike to stock before you modify it. That way, you know what the bike is, what you've got, and you can work from there out. Okay, and that is one of the biggest things I preach. Bring the bike to stock, especially a two-stroke. God, a two-stroke is very, very finicky, unlike a four-stroke. Four-stroke, who cares? You know, you can put all kinds of stuff on it. But the problem with a four-stroke, why don't I? Why, if the four strokes are so great, why don't you do four strokes? That's probably what you're saying, right? Here's why: a four-stroke engine is bigger, it's got more parts, and they're not as fast, not as powerful. A two-stroke engine takes that big power and puts it in a smaller, lightweight, easy to maneuver package. A two-stroke engine is by far superior over a four-stroke engine any day of the week. When you get into the throttle on a four-stroke engine, I mean, really get the RPMs cranking, you end up what they call valve float, and that's when the cam is hitting the valve so fast and so hard that instead of the valves closing the way they should, it's tapping them and they're coming up and they're slapping the cam. Okay, that's called valve float. And typically, when it gets to a certain RPM, a piston will make contact with a valve, and then at that point, you're done. On a two-stroke, you don't have that problem. If you have your bike tuned properly, that bike through your entire RPM range is simply just going to scream. Period. Okay? It's designed for high RPM. It's designed for maximum power. I mean, it's lightweight, easy to maneuver. Typically, it has low what do you call it there? Low center of gravity. As a four stroke has a higher center of gravity. So it's harder to get into a turn with a four stroke than it is a two stroke. And I'm talking about dirt bikes. Okay. And the power band when you're coming up on the hills and stuff like that, and like jumps and what do you call it there? Little I forgot what they call them. But in the motocross world, you know what I'm talking about. I forgot what the heck you call them. But when you're climbing those, all right, it's a little easier to do with a two-stroke than it is a four-stroke, only because the throttle response, the quickness is right there. And I'll tell you, you can get some serious power out of a two-stroke. And the nice thing about them is there's no you don't the maintenance is less too. You don't have to change your oil, your motor oil. There is none. The only oil you have is in the transmission, and that lasts. That is not something you have to change every, you know, right away. You can go way longer than you can on the transmission oil than you can anything else. That's a good question. Typically, I would say yes. Depends on how bad the leak is, because remember, your exhaust is going out faster with a leak, and that would be like a garden hose. So if you have a garden hose and you stick it over the end of it and it sprays out faster, kind of like a garden hose. So I would say yes, it can cause a lean condition, and typically you'll also you'll see it leaking a lot of like black sooty oily stuff. That's because that's the unburnt fuel coming out. I would definitely replace the crush gasket, and you know what? They're cheap enough to do too. So I would definitely take the time, pull that apart, and do that, because you want a sealed exhaust from the jug all the way to the tip, and that's going to give you the most power. If you guys have a KE 100 and you have a little bit of extra money to throw around, get an exhaust tip from a what do you call it? KM 100. and throw that on there. You'll thank me later. That bike will move. It is just the way it is. I'll tell you. I love that exhaust tip. How often do you have to replace those crush gaskets? Only when they leak. I have I've had my crush gasket on my bike for since I got the bike, really. I mean, I haven't even taken it off. In fact, when I did take off the exhaust, I reused it and checked it to see if it leaked and didn't leak. Um, but don't go crazy trying to tighten up those exhaust studs. Okay, I see a lot of people breaking exhaust studs, so make sure you put them in nicely, evenly, and that's how you do them. But if your exhaust crush gasket is leaking, replace it. If it's not leaking, you have the exhaust off, recommended replace it, but most of the time you can get away with just wiping it down and putting it back in and reseating it, and it won't leak. If you do notice it leaking, definitely replace it because it's gonna leak all that black sooty stuff on the ground. It's gonna get on your tire. It's gonna spin up. Replace the gasket. It's just worth replacing, and it's cheap. They're only like 5-6 bucks. So, and once again, doesn't matter what you have for a bike. Go to Partzilla, look up your part number, throw it on eBay, and boom. So that's what I do. Head gaskets, another one on two-stroke that's mostly common to leak because it's just copper plate. What I do is before I go replace the gasket, I retorque the head. Sometimes I'll take the head off, clean it up, put it back on the head and the cylinder, throw it back on, and then retorque it. And then warm the engine up, get it hot, let it cool down, and then retorque it again. And that typically helps it. I have found with the cylinder head on a KE 100, a KM, a KD, an MC1, all that family, what happens is they want you to torque the cylinder head to 16 foot-pounds. I find that is too light. I've actually upped my torque to 20 foot-pounds, and it has been perfect. That's the magic number was 20 foot-pounds. It was only 4 pounds more, so it worked out pretty well, and it can handle it no problem. And it lasts a whole lot longer, especially if you're running like me. I'm running all high compression heads on all my bikes. All my bikes are CDI, tricked out carbs. So, and I'm going to be doing some more of that over the course of the summer, spring and summer. I'll be doing videos on. I was thinking about doing some videos on my personal tech tips that performance, but I want to make sure you guys are understanding the basics first before I start getting into some more technical and stuff like that. How can you tell when the head gasket is leaking on a two-stroke? Good question. You will see if you when you're going when you're doing your walk around on your bike. So, oftentimes I tell people do your when you open up your bike and you're walking around it, you want to be checking your oil, that vent tube. Make sure I always preach that. Check your oil vent tube, and where your cylinder head is and your cylinder is, there's a gap there. You basically you what you're looking for is you're looking for any oily soot around that. So where the head meets the cylinder, if you see like an oily trail, any soot, typically that's a leak. And I always check those. If your cylinder is dry all the way around on all four sides of your cylinder, then you're good to go and there's no leak. Typically, what happens, like my green bike, my KE 100 that I ride all the time, what I was noticing was when I first started up in the cold, I would see a puff of white smoke come out the head gasket. I'm like, oh, see, I do pressure test on my motor. So I always check in my motors and stuff like that. Um, I don't do it all every year or anything like that, but like every 2 to 3 years, I'll pull a vacuum test on it, just make sure that it's sealed up. Because I don't want any issues. I mean, they sit all winter long, and then excuse me, and then I ride the crap out of them. So they go from sitting to riding, and well, I'll be showing you guys that on videos anyway. And now that I got the GoPro, I'll be taking you guys on a lot of rides with me. So that's going to be cool, and you guys get to see the performances. We'll be doing a lot of stuff like that, and on all the bikes. So, yeah, the two strokes. I love those two strokes. Man, what a sound! There's nothing like them. Nothing like them. But yeah, I'm going to be doing some comprehensive performance videos, and it'll be starting with doing calibration and tuning, because oftentimes because of emissions regulations, there is a lot of power that the bike can produce, but it's left right on the table. And typically, when you adjust them, you get more power, the bike is more efficient, and the emissions are lower. I don't know why they have it set the way they do. Maybe they feel that the bike can't perform. I don't know. I don't know. But there's definitely a lot of power to be made, especially on these little bikes. The real question is, can they handle it? Especially with that little 4-disc clutch. So this is why I say what I say. I don't make fun of the bikes, but I'm saying that they're kind of a glorified scooter because they do have a little clutch. That little clutch is, really where you're going to be losing. You're spinning that little mass. You're not going to have the power band. The power band when you get on that throttle, and that's where all the power is made. If you look at a like a motocross bike, the clutches, excuse me, the clutches are bigger. There's more of them, and the whole package weighs more. So when you turn that mass, the momentum will carry you, where it doesn't really do that on a KE 100, or any little 100s for that matter. So we're going to be touching base on all that type of stuff. Hopefully, hopefully we can do some stuff about that. I have a few tricks up my sleeve on things I'm working on right now to try to make some more stuff. So I got some ideas. I can't wait to do them, and I'll be doing them this year. So so tired. I'm going to try making my first 5-disc clutch setup. I'm going to do that this year. See how I can do that. It'd be pretty neat if I can put an extra disc in there, and if there's enough room. Realistically, what it comes down to is there enough room between the clutch basket and the side cover? If there's not, then that's going to be an issue. Then I'd have to see if I could find a shim. That's going to affect the rotary valve. So there's a lot of things that when you modify things that you have to take into consideration. You can't just go with the bigger clutch basket. Now it's going to affect where the carburetor sits on the rotary valve, where the how far it sticks out from the Kickstarter, all that type of stuff. You have to think about all that stuff when you're doing these type of things, creating shims and all that stuff. So there is a lot involved with it mechanically, and hopefully I can show you guys all that. I got so many projects right now I'm working on. So as we kind of go through them and navigate through, we'll be picking up some more stuff and going that way. But so yeah, no, this is a crazy amount that we're just gonna keep going through. And well, Brian, like with your bike there, the GT80 is a great little bike, just a beautiful little bike. And like the one that I have that's out back, my red one, that bike right there is an on-road one, and I put the provisions into the motor to allow it to run the tack. So we're going to be modifying that bike to have a whole gauge cluster. It was never intended for a gauge cluster. It only had that one gauge. Go big or go home. Make the bikes your own. Modify them to your way. I even possibly have a top secret project coming up. Oh, careful, buddy. Hey, watch out. You almost hit my subscriber with that cranium.
I'm really good.
Oh, geez, sorry. All right, watch out, buddy. You gonna say hi to everybody?
Hello. Hello.
All right, so I'll gotta go. I might get you after. Where's my goon? Hold on 1 second, guys. There you go. All right, let me do my video. That's my goon. But yeah, we have, like I said, we're gonna be teaching you guys some crazy stuff this year coming up, and the channel's growing. We just hit what was it 5,066 subscribers? So thank you guys to all you new guys and everybody coming here and hanging out and checking in on the Stroke Tuesdays or the Wheelie Wednesdays, or the Full Throttle Fridays. If I have to do one on a Friday, that's what I'm calling it, Full Throttle Fridays. So we'll get, this is really fun. This is cool. So I just want to say thank you guys again for all your support. 1,088 views and counting. I mean, it's just crazy. So you guys are awesome. I want to say thank you guys again for all your support. It means a lot to me because honestly, when I started this, I didn't, like I told you guys before. I keep saying it. I can't help it. I didn't think it was going to take off like this. I really didn't. But we're growing. We're doing what we got to do, and we're fixing bikes, and that's what we deal with. We're men with 10mm wrenches. That's it. So yeah, we got some cool stuff. Like I said, the jetting video is going to be intense. There's going to be so much of it, so much information, and take notes on some of the stuff I do on that when that comes up. Make sure you really listen because there is a lot to jetting, and it's one of those things where how do you even know where to start? So I'll be teaching you guys all that type of stuff, and a lot of you guys are gonna be like, "Wow, this is really tedious. There's got to be an easier way." Unfortunately, there is not. It is a crazy tedious job to do, and it makes it very difficult to explain, and it's a lot of repetition. But once you kind of get it, you'll understand it, what you're looking for. I'm going to be teaching you guys what to look for, how to do it, and the relationship. There's a relationship going on between a pilot jet and your main jet. And if you go too big on your main jet, you're going to have a hesitation when you go from quarter throttle to half throttle because there's a transfer point where it goes from the pilot jet to the main jet. And if the main jet is too big and this one's too small, it's going to bog. So you need to get that balance, and I'll be working with you guys on that and showing you guys all that crazy stuff. There is a lot to take in. It's not something that you're gonna just bang, got it. It's one of those things where you're gonna have to work at it. And I'm your wingman, so when you guys are doing it on your bikes, feel free to ask the questions. And I'm gonna give you guys all the basics, and then I'm gonna go advanced on you. So when those videos come up this spring, you this like I said, this is full on tech. Okay, this ain't backyard stuff. When I do that, this is full on technician how to do it. So that's what you're going to be getting out of that part of that series, and it's going to probably be about 2 to 3 videos. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. Um, Setting up a bike is not cut and dry. A lot of people think, oh, you just put this. Oh no, I put this. Like you see these Harley Davidson guys. Okay, they get a brand new bike. They bring it home off the showroom. First thing they do, rip the exhaust off. I'm getting a Screaming Eagle or a Vance and Hines exhaust system. I'm putting it on my bike, and then they put it on the bike, and they're like, "This thing runs like crap." I mean, it idles beautifully, but the minute they give it throttle, the bike lost all of its power because they have to rejet. So then they're like, well, what jet do I use? What else does the bike have? Did you put a new air filter, a new air cleaner assembly on it? Did you modify it? These are things you need to know. What did you do? What did you do to the bike? Did you bore it out? Did you put bigger valves in it? Did you change the cams? What did you do to the bike? That's same thing with these bikes. Okay, You can't just modify things and not follow through. You have to. Everything has a relationship, and in a relationship, everything has to work together. If they don't work together, they're not in a relationship. And if you're not in a relationship, it's going to run like crap. So it's kind of like kung fu. Everything around you is kung fu. Well, the same thing with these bikes. Everything that you put on the bike or take off the bike has a relationship, and they have to work together. If they can't work together, you've got nothing. You're gonna lose power. And just because it sounds great doesn't mean it's great. Sometimes you have to give a little, take a little, put in a little bit, take a little bit out. You have to balance it. It's the same thing. So, which is not really necessarily a bad thing. So that's why I tell everybody start off with stock. Hey, how you doing? Well, my crankcase, everything is good. How do I put the Kickstarter spring? Just pop. So what I do is I put the spring through the hole first, get it all set up, and there's that slit that's in that plastic piece. Make sure you key it in, slide it in. I actually have video on that. The tapered, so if you're looking at the center hole, you get that little piece of plastic there. You got the center hole. One side has a bevel on the inside that goes in, okay? Because you'll see the little bump on the block, and that fits over there. Just slides in that way. It will feel saggy. That's just how they are. But once they're into the case, it stiffens it up. So yeah, I'll tell you, there's a lot to these things. But once you understand the mechanics and you start really getting behind the two-stroke engine, see, um, once again, you can do so much more with a two-stroke than you can a four-stroke. Just a four-stroke is a lot more forgiving. That's really it. But it's big, it's heavy, and it has less power than a two-stroke. So two-strokes require a lot more finesse. You got to pressure test them, make sure they're not leaking for a lean condition. You want to keep an eye on your temperature. You want to make sure that your oiler is working correctly. You want to make sure that your fuel flow is good, because if you have a clogged petcock and you're getting less fuel, that can create a lean condition. So there's so many things that create a lean condition as opposed to on a four-stroke. If you have a clogged petcock on a four-stroke, it might have a lean condition, but it's not going to perform like that. What it's going to do is it's gonna bog and have a hard time climbing or getting out of its own way. So that's kind of where you're at. You know what I mean? So you've got to give and take. But once you understand all the fundamentals of a two-stroke, what they are, what they work, how they work, and what they can do for you, you're gonna really love your bike, and that's we're gonna open up all that stuff. So, um, I'm gonna be doing, like I said, some comprehension schooling type videos on the channel coming this spring. We're just gonna call it the two stroke class 101, and it'll be in different parts. I think that's the way to go, because I want you guys to understand the ins and outs of your bike and what they can and cannot do. I see a lot of people in other countries, and they're on their bikes without the covers on them, and they're screaming. It's just the bike doesn't last long. So then, when they do that, here's what I've been seeing. They take the cover off, so the carburetor is exposed. Now, well, they have a spooner bike there, the Raz. They're sucked in a ton of fuel, sucked in a ton of dirt, and destroyed the engine, which we're going to be dissecting that very, very soon. Because I want to show you guys all the damage that there's a lot of damage on that motor, but we'll get into that at that time. In fact, we'll be doing some videos on it because he wants to put that together. The what was I saying? Oh yeah, so he was riding the bike. It's very sandy there, and basically it was like holding a sandblaster right to the carburetor and just letting it rip while the engine was running, and it destroyed the motor. I don't understand what I did wrong. or they'll take the exhaust off, so it's just a header pipe, so it comes underneath and just dumps out into the atmosphere. How come I'm not getting the power? My four-stroke could do that. Totally different setup. So just some things like that, you know. So so what else you guys working on? You guys do anything fun and exciting? Any modifications to your bikes? I saw some nice handlebar rises, and I saw handlebar rises for the 7/8 handlebars that kick back a little bit to make you're more upright, instead of bent over. Pretty cool. We gotta get back on the KU 102 build. Um, I want to start on that soon. Like there's so many things. I'm just trying to clean up the bikes that I have out here now, and then we're gonna get into that. So after Robert's bike and Roberts and Brian's bike, that's going to be my cutoff. I'm going to be working on the KE 102 exclusively to get that thing done because there's so much to do that. I have more parts to paint. I still have paint in a box I haven't even opened yet. So I want to make sure I get the parts painted, put on there, and excuse me, I got to get the fuel tank done. That's going to be stripped down, painted, and decaled. Um, there's a lot to that bike. That bike is crazy. I'll just put it that way. The bike is going to be crazy, and there's a lot of modifications to that motor, and there's a lot more to come. It's not I got that performance exhaust system, jetting. I put a power valve in the carburetor, so when it hits full throttle, it dumps more fuel. It's got the tachometer, CDI, 12-volt ignition. There's a lot on that motor that is not stock. And I put the high and low, had the machined. So it's got the high and low transmission. Not that it needs it, but it's pretty cool. I figured I'd throw that on there. And instead of having the control, it's going to have the foot to shift it into high and low. What else is there? I'll be doing all kinds of videos on that. Modified a new gear for it. There's just a lot. There's so much. So much. Trying to think. I'm working with aerospace. They're a CNC machine shop for my plates, CDI ignition. I started on that project, so that's coming up. That's going to be we're talking about things, emailing, designs and stuff like that, back and forth. I'm going to be doing my own magneto flywheel, 4-magnet flywheels. I'm going to be doing that, and they're going to be made out of aluminum, not steel. So what this is going to do is it's going to be lighter, which is going to spin up faster, and still be 12-volt and CDI. So it's not just a CDI and 12-volt. It's literally a performance package, and it's going to be great. Wasn't working on my. Nice, good job. Yeah, once you clean them, typically what happens is water gets in there. A little bit of rust or dirt can stop that. It's like a speaker. It has to basically vibrate those plates. That's a good one, Wally. That's great. It's nice when you can take them apart and you can physically, hold all the components, clean them up, put them back together, and then they all work, which is really, really nice when it happens like that. Really, really nice. Good job. And that's the other thing too. When I do the package, the performance package, it's going to have the horn, the 12-volt horn, the LED lighting, all for the bike. So that I'm going to make full-on packages and semi packages. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking of it, feeling it out. So one package is going to have all the lights. The other one's just going to be the magneto and ignition system. So we got 2 packages. Wow, a lot of stuff. What's going on, buddy?
You're speaking a little low. I couldn't even hear you.
Oh, Mama's calling you.
Hello. I just need a subscriber.
Yep, I know. You hit him with your cranium. Yeah, tons of fun, guys. Tons of fun. So we got some stuff. We got some stuff. Um, One of the biggest things everybody tries to do is put flat slide carburetors on there. There's a lot of benefits to the flat slide, um, but the round slide works perfectly fine for these bikes, and there is more modifications that you can do with these um, round slide ones. And I'll be doing some heavy tricking out videos on how to get way more out of these carburetors. So um, just hang tight for those because those come in the spring. And when you see some of the stuff, you can be like, "Oh, that's it. That's it." There's gonna be like a lot of little things. Um, these are the McQueen carburetors are a great carburetor, and I'll tell you, there's so much you can get for them, and what you can do, you just have to know where to look, and that's kind of the hard thing. Because the first thing we do on these bikes is we go online and we look up KE100 carbs, but it's not really the KE100 carb where the stuff is. You have to look up the VM19, which is their carburetor. But some of them have the flats, what do you call it? Instead of having the inside one, this would be a female style carburetor, but they have the male, and it pops into the grommet, but it has a lot of stuff. You can change some of the modifications that we're going to be talking about is changing the center needle to a more thinner, a more aggressive taper. That's going to change it. So on a slide, you have that where you put the clip. When you change, so on the KE100s, they come down and then they start to cut in, and they got a very fat tip. When you stop modifying a carburetor and you change the size of the main needle, you get one that's more sharper point with a smaller tip. That's going to change the fuel flow from idle to top end. Um, these are different things that you can do by changing the needle and where the clip placement is. You can literally play around with these bikes to change your fuel mapping, how much fuel you're going to get, where your power band is. So we're going to be doing things like that to get more power out of these bikes. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be comparing these carburetors to motocross carburetors. And what you're going to find is that there's a lot in common, and a lot of the modifications from the motocross bikes, you can, when I say kind of do, you can kind of do them. It's going to be just a little bit smaller. Is you talking about for a specific makeup bike? Guessing you won't. No, they're going to be for the Kawasaki's. The Lyre bikes already have a CDI ignition. The Lyre bikes, the GT80s, the MX80s, the RX50s, those bikes already have provisions for CDI and 12 volt. Believe it or not, those bikes are stupid easy to make 12 volts. Um, it's mind numbing how easy they are to make 12-volt systems and CDI. In fact, I just put, well, I didn't just do it, I did it like, if you look on my videos on my GT80, you'll see that I put a RX50 um, trigger style CDI onto that motor from the RX50. And all the parts are readily available for that. Pretty much all those GT80s, the Lyre bikes have um, 4 magnet flywheels, which is really what you need. The heart of that is the 4 magnet flywheel. The reason what a 4 magnet flywheel is it shows you 4 positions on the crank, which is what you need, so it knows when it's on intake, when it's on exhaust, compression, and fire. So it knows all that by the placement of the magnets. The 3 magnet confuses that, okay, because now it has to see 3 angles, and what it's doing is it's in between strokes. So it can't discern where it's at. That's why a 4 magnet flywheel is imperative over a 3 magnet flywheel. So it has to know where it is. That field has to pass over, and it can't because there's only 3 magnets. So it doesn't know when to fire like that. With a points ignition, a 3 magnet is perfect because your um, basically your coils are making the voltage, and the cam in the middle is what opens and closes the points, so that's your timing. So, but we're gonna be getting to all that on these videos. So we're gonna be really dissecting these bikes piece by piece, and when I do Brian's bike, you're really gonna see some stuff on that bike. We're going all in on that bike. He wants to go all in, so that bike is going to be CDI as well. We're going to be basically he wants a sleeper bike. That bike is going to be CDI, no points, and it doesn't have the lights on it, so we're not going to make it 12 volt. It's still going to be whatever it is, 6. But yeah, he wants that bike to perform, so we're going to make that bike perform. It's going to be bored out, ported, and of course we're going to have to jet the carburetor, do some baffle modifications, all that type of stuff. So pretty cool. We got some stuff coming up. There's a lot of science to it, a lot of figuring things out. But once I start showing you guys how I figure it all out and how I do I call it mathematical equation. I have no math involved, but the mathematical, like the balance of it, um, I'll be showing you guys all that type of stuff, and it's really really cool. I wish I knew someone who had a dyno, because if I did, I would definitely see about renting it and, or, "Hey, can you book me some hours on that?" But unfortunately, we can't. I don't have anybody in this area who has a dyno, but, yeah, it'd be pretty cool. So, definitely be pretty cool. That's awesome, Brian. Yeah, it's gonna be your bike is gonna fly. You're gonna like the bike. The bike is gonna come alive. So, and that's part of the whole thing is you know there's things you can do with reed valves, which I'm gonna be doing. That's the other thing. When we start getting onto what I call the wire bikes, GTs, there's some modifications and there's some do's and there's some don'ts, and I'm gonna be teaching you guys all that intricate stuff, the do's and don'ts, and the most common mistakes. A mistake can make or break a bike. And when I say that, I mean I'm talking blowing the darn thing up. You know what I mean? So we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that the bikes are start up stock and go from there. So when you talk about, you know, I want like the sleeper bike, for instance, we're gonna get the most out of this thing. He's got a high compression head. You guys saw the modification I did on my GT80 cylinder head, where we cut the fins to fit where the exhaust is. It's a high compression head, but the fins are taller and very robust, which makes them run cooler. So these are gonna really help the airflow to keep that bike cool. All the rest of the fins on the cylinder are in amazing condition. We're gonna sandblast it, and it's well when you see it, it's gonna look like brand new. So the head and the cylinder are gonna match. Um, it's going to be ported, bored, and tricked out. So there is a lot of stuff that you guys are going to be just floored by when you guys see it. And the most important thing about the whole thing is you're going to actually see it all come together. You watch other channels, it's not explained to you. I watch some of these YouTube channels. I'm not even going to get into their names, but I watch some of these channels and they speed up this whole thing, and it's crazy. You guys are going to see a lot about what goes on, and I got to talk to the machinist who does it. I'm going to see if he'll allow me to shoot that cylinder being bored out. So that will be a day project as well. I think it'll be really, really cool so you guys can see the process of what's going on with these modifications. Oh, you're very welcome. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. AG5, nice. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a nice comment. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that and teaching you guys how to do these type of things because you got to start somewhere. And you know, being a mechanic in this day and age is way harder than it was when I was coming up. I used to be able to, and this is gonna sound terrible, but it's true. I used to be able to go to the. I used to I lived in Haverhill, Mass. My entire life growing up. I was born and raised there, and I lived not that far from the dump. Not like the dump where you bring your trash, but the scrap yard. And I literally used to buy bikes back then for $5 a bike or an engine, $5. The guy who owned it was Mike. That was his name, and that's I didn't know his last name, but I always knew Mike. And I had a tab. I remember being 13 years old, and I had a tab at a salvage yard. So what I would do is I would go down there and I'd buy a bike. Like, can you put this on my tab? Yep. And then Friday would come around. I'd tell my mom, Mom, I bought four things this week. It'd be $20, and she would have me do chores, special chores, not above and beyond. And she'd give me $20, and I'd go down, pay my tab, and you know she looked at it this way. I was learning. I was learning. I went to a trade school, Whittier Vote Tech, and I've just been in love with bikes, car engines, motorcycles, trucks, cars, everything that has an engine on it, gas, diesel, two stroke, four stroke, all anything with an engine on it. And today you can't do that. If you went to a salvage yard and found a bike, you're paying at least $100, bare minimum, $100, and then you get the thing home. You go on eBay, and all the parts are stupid money, and they're all over the place. Okay, and you're waiting. It's just crazy. So it's an honor for me to teach you guys how to do all these type of things and to share my experiences with you, so that you guys can enjoy the same experience that I experienced when I was doing it, and understand it's a learning curve. It's different, and there's a lot to understand. So, once again, I'm just thrilled to death to be able to help you guys with these projects. So, really, really cool. Well, guys, it is getting late, and I have to get my little guy tucked in. So, I'm going to let you guys go for now. And until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Ready for it? I'm out. I'll talk to you guys later. You guys have a good night and keep wrenching. Okay.